Good Wednesday evening to you all out there. Welcome into another episode of the OBR Prospect Spotlight here on the OBR Streaming Network. Please make sure you hit that subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Helps us out a ton, and we're almost to our 10,000 subscriber goal. So it'd be really cool if you did that. I'm your host Jacob. You can find me on Twitter at Roachism13. I'm the resident draft nerd here at the OBR. If you're new, so most of you are tuning into this know that I am way too obsessed with the NFL draft. So this is recorded this Wednesday morning. It's all going to be about the draft. I'm not really going to talk about the joint practices. I don't have all the information from them yet to really say anything about the Browns and the Panthers. But today I am solo because I wanted to do an early draft favorites. So everybody in the draft community always has their guys that they just, even if they aren't top ranked, sometimes they are, but they're just guys they really, really love on tape. They're like, man, these are really fun prospects that I think are going to be really good at the next level. I wanted to talk about some of those guys coming out of summer scouting. So it might be a little bit of a shorter pod. I'm going to bring up the PFF mock draft simulator so I can show you some of their numbers and like their overall grades and things like that. That way you're just not staring at just my face the whole time. So we're going to bring that up here in a second. My current plan, I've got to work out the logistics, is to do the quarterback episode next week. So the hope is to get a guest that I'm really excited about and do top 10, his top 10, my top 10 heading into the 2025 college football season. And so we can kind of talk about those prospects, where I think they stand and where I project they'll go. I will talk about one of those quarterbacks today because I have a draft crush on one already. But let's get right into it. I want to start, and some of these guys are going to be guys that I've talked about a little bit already on other shows, so I do apologize for that. But I'm going to start with Utah right tackle Spencer Fono. You can see the differences he made in his first season in 2023 versus 2024. As you can see, he actually started at left tackle mostly in 2023, and they moved him to a right side last year in 2024, and he had a much better year. 11 hurries, 2 hits, 1 sack. If you're like, there's going to be some, you'll see here, the 6'6", 302, and they might talk about, I think Trevor Sycamore, who writes these up, talks about it. There is some concerns about arm length and things like that. But if you were looking for a big in-your-face, like road grading run blocker, I think that's even what PFF notes about it. I think this is very mainly I'll read what PFF has here. He led all FBS tackles with the 93 overall grade this past season. That's mainly due to his dominance in the run game. He was the best run blocker in the country by over 3 points in their metrics, which I think, is interesting. There's some length concerns that could push him inside to guard, but he's an elite athlete with dominant tape as a true sophomore. That's the thing. He had some really nasty tape in terms of him just mauling people and dominating them while he was a true sophomore. And Browns fans, you think like, hey, Wyatt Teller level mauler is what I think of when I see Spencer Fono. And yeah, he's a good athlete, just like Wyatt Teller. He moves well in space, and he's able to do more than just be a big, strong, powerful guy. But he really wants to get in your face, and he really wants to control those reps. And that's the kind of tackle I like. And the Browns are in an interesting spot this year because we don't know if left tackle will be solved or not. They may go into this draft needing both sides, but if DeJuan Jones, who looks a lot better to start this year, he's lost a lot of weight, his mobility's there, he's moving around, he's got that great length, and he's just able to use his tools better. If he can lock down left tackle and they go into the draft needing a right tackle, and they have potentially 2 high picks with their own Jacksonville, Spencer Fono is an option at right tackle, and I think he would fit really well. And I think I always like these guys. Like I always say, let him, Casey Kinnaman says this too, but let him start at tackle and fail inside. If they can't cut it because of length issues or anything, they need to move inside, they move him inside. But he's a big mauler, physical, in-your-face type that it's just exciting to watch his tape, and I'm very excited to watch him. His left tackle on the other side is also a prime candidate. So watching Utah's offensive line, if you're a Browns fan, would not be a bad idea. There's a lot of potential there for those guys to potentially be Browns candidates. I'm going to move to a guy that's talked about. I've talked about him again before, and he's right up there in the wide receiver one race, and that's Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State. He did not play because I thought this was interesting watching back at his tape, and I was like, I don't remember him in that playoff game. He did not play in the playoff game last year. He was injured, so he did miss the playoff game that Cam Skadaboo went on. But you can see last year he had played in 12 games, had 75 receptions on 113 targets for 1,098 yards, 14.6 yards per catch, and 10 touchdowns. And only played in 3 games a year before. So it's really just the 1 year of production for Jordan Tyson. Here's the thing. The body control is insane. I'll read you my notes. I'll go down through my notes my scouting notes on him. Literally the first thing is the insane body control and concentration. So his ability to contort his body and around, both his upper body and his lower body to adjust to the ball in the air and block everything out. It doesn't matter where the defensive back is, good throw, bad throw. Like he does get it in his vicinity. He does have a smaller catch radius because he's not super big. Is 6'2". I thought he was smaller than that. But he's not going to dominate you necessarily physically. But it's the concentration and the body control that really do it for me with Jordan Tyson. I'm sorry, you can't see his name. That was part of the reason I wanted to bring this stuff up, is so that you guys knew what I was talking about. I think he's a really good natural separator. And his ability to separate does come from that body control. Like, I just love the way he can adjust to the ball. I know I keep saying this, but the body control, and I'm going to say it a million times because I think it's insanely good. It's very important. He's a natural separator. I think he creates mismatches in the red zone because of his contested catch ability, because of that concentration and because of that body control and the things that he can do to adjust and make difficult catches. I think it's really important. I think he needs to refine his route running a little bit. Like, he has the body control. Like, he's a good separator and things like that. Like, but I think just he rounds off some routes and sometimes he can telegraph where he's going a little bit too much. But like, he'll get there. I wrote this down. I really love this. He has the no block, no rock mentality. Like, he will get in your face. He's, close to 200 pounds. He's under 200 pounds. But like, he will block you, and it's not just effort. Like, the effort's there, but there's some good technique, good hand usage. If he gets a little bit stronger, look out. Like, because it's there. The makings is there. I think he runs angry after the catch, which is always fun, because it's just kind of that mentality, that physical. He's got an injury history, not just last year, but there's been some injuries throughout his career, so you're worried a little bit about that. And then just refining the route running, but the body control and the concentration and the ball tracking for Jordan Tyson is why he's my top wide receiver going into the year, and why he's a draft crush of mine. He's on my guys list early on. I'm going to move to another wide receiver now, who may be a little bit further down on some of the rankings. Let me get him pulled up here for you guys, but not necessarily. And that's the Indiana Hoosiers, Elijah Suratt. So you can see his last two years at Indiana, his last 2 seasons in college football, 89.9 in 2023 for PFF and an 80 last year, 13 games in both. Narrowly missed back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, had 957 yards this year, had 1,199 last year, 8 touchdowns both years. But one thing that is important is he had nearly a 4-yard per reception, as you can see there. Like, he had less targets and less receptions, and he ended up with 18.1 yards this year compared to the 14.6 he had 2 years ago. Elijah Suratt's really interesting to me, as you can see his size here, 6'2", 209. He's a senior, little slightly older prospect, I guess, by that kind of metrics. He is one of the better blocking wide receivers that I've watched this summer. And it's all about, his game is all prefaced on that physicality. I think his physicality really stands up. I think he's another guy he's got solid body control. It's not on Jordan Tyson's level. I don't think he's not that level of athlete that Jordan Tyson is, but it's good. It's above average. It's above average body control, strong hands, reliable hands. You don't feel like, he's going to drop a lot of passes. Like he will, a really solid hand catcher. Doesn't allow the ball to get in there. I think he's a limited athlete with kind of average long speed and not a ton of creativity after the catch, but he is a chain mover. I wrote this down, and Browns fans will get a little bit mad about this comparison, but I'm talking about what this guy was in college and not what this guy has been for the Browns. But he reminds me of David Bell. When David Bell was at Purdue and when he was coming out and I was evaluating him, my thing was he's always open and he moves the chains and he catches the ball. Like, not going to do some, he'll have some really nice catches because he has good body control and he's a deep, good athlete. He's just not an elite athlete. Like, he's not a burner or anything like that, but he understands how to attack defenses and he understands how they're trying to stop him. So really high football IQ guy, and he just gets open and moves the chains. And when you think about the NFL and the way that offensive pass catchers and offensive passing attacks are kind of constructed, having guys that just get open and catch the ball, like possession receivers, it's kind of a lost art form, but still an important one in my mind. Like, it's still something like you need that depth. So to me, like, he's a limited guy where he's never going to probably be a wide receiver one, but I really like him because of the physicality as a run blocker and also the fact that he's just reliable. I think he's just reliable. I'm very interested to see what happens in Indiana because I think that offense can be really fun this year. And I think he might have better quarterback play. We'll talk about that next week. And so Elijah Suratt is another guy that's on my list of guys that I just find very intriguing going into the year. All right, I'm going to shift to quarterback. This is the only quarterback I'm going to talk about today, and I'm not going to get too crazy into it because we're going to do the quarterback show next week and really get into quarterbacks. I know you guys are all desperate for that as Browns fans. I know we're in a very weird spot. This is a guy that I did not expect to jump on my radar the way he did, and he's transferred. But that's Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer. Last year with Washington State, he played in 12 games, he had 64% completion percentage, 3,136 yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 112 quarterback rating. This guy's arm is live. Like, that ball jumps off his hands. What I wanted to read you is when I back in June when I first got eyes on John Mateer, because I really didn't know much about him. I sent a series of texts to my friend Bill Sparks, who's been on this program a few times and will be on this program moving forward, about John Mateer and what I thought of him and some of the things that he had done. And this is my exact first text to him at like 10:30 in the morning. I said, I'll tell you what, I watched a smidge of John Mateer last night, and good God, the arm is live. Ball jumps off his hand. Like, that just really jumps out to you immediately. It's like, and he said, yeah, he definitely jumps off his hands, but he's reckless. And I'm like, yeah, he is. He's absolutely erratic. And then this is what really I want to put out there, and I'll expand on John Mateer and the quarterback class in full detail next week. He reminds me of where Cam Ward was last year at this time. Cam Ward was a day 3 guy who had a lot of erratic issues with accuracy, and he was a gunslinger and taking risks, and he's still there. But he took massive steps last year and eventually became the number 1 overall pick as a result. And so I said, it kind of reminds me of where Cam Ward is, and I said I'm excited to see if he can sharpen his game, because boy does he have the physical tools. And very much so, Bill agreed with me and said it'd be really interesting to see if it translates to the SEC. So yeah, he's going in there. His offensive coordinator is coming with him, so it's going to be very interesting to see how that works. But in terms of a guy that may be a sleeper to really rise, that may be a Cam Ward type quarterback this season, John Mateer is up there for me. And the raw physical tools are there. He's just really erratic and inconsistent. And, a guy that's got 18 college started 18 games the last couple of years, really only a 1-year starter. I'm sorry, played in 18 games and started 18 games. So yeah, that's the quarterback we'll talk about today. A guy I really like in John Mateer. We'll see. We'll see what happens with John Mateer, because there's a chance like he goes back. There's a good chance he goes back. There's a chance he finds his way into the first round. There's a chance he never becomes more than a third round pick. So it's very interesting. So now the guy I talked about a couple of weeks ago on the safety episode that I keep coming back is Dylan Theamman. So he starts his first 2 years at Purdue before now he's over in Oregon. I'm very excited to see what Oregon does with him and his skill set. So you can see he had a much better 2023 and an 89.5 that year versus a 72.4 overall this past year with Purdue. But if I scroll down here, you can kind of get some of the answers. If you see here his splits, his snap counts in 2023, he had 702 snaps as a deep free safety. And then for some reason, he had 450 last year. They gave him 200 box snaps, 100 slot snaps. What you see here is that this is a guy that is a true deep free safety. I think when he is at free safety, he's the best free safety I've watched. Caleb Downs is the best safety and maybe the best prospect I've watched this summer. But in terms of range and ability as a deep free safety, Dylan Theamman is that guy to me. Some notes that I had in 2023, playing at that deep spot, he had 8 forced turnovers, 6 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. It was a great season as a freshman, and then he was doing these things as a true freshman. Purdue moved him all over in 2024, and he was still good. He was solid. He wasn't bad, but you can see that PFF had him as an elite college safety as a true freshman, and then they moved him around, and he was just kind of on a slightly above average player. So it was one of those things that kind of makes you go back and be like, well, why did you do that? Like, why did you think that was going to work? And why didn't you change your mind and stick him back there? But one thing that it is important, he had over 100 tackles in both seasons. So I think he has elite speed and great ball skills when he is as a deep safety. I think his ability when he is back there in the back at free and able to just see the whole field, his play recognition, football IQ, just put him in such a great position to make plays on the ball and to be an impactful player. And I think his range is awesome. 6 foot tall, 207 pounds. Those traits that he has that makes him a special safety are best when he's back there. And it's just great athleticism. And one thing that I would say that I put a note was he wasn't always flashy, even though he had made a lot of flashy plays. But one thing I didn't notice very much, especially as a free safety, was him letting up really explosive plays. Like, he does such a great job of keeping everything in front of him, where it's like, hey, maybe you get a 15-yard gain or a 20-yard gain, but you're never going to get a 50 on me. Like, it's a very conscious effort from him to try to make sure that those things don't happen. But yeah, Dylan Theamman, really big fan of his game at the safety position. So we'll see. I really like Oregon and their defensive mind on Dan Lanning. So we'll see what happens with him once he gets to that. Now that he's with that program, we'll see kind of where he goes from there. I'm going to jump back. I've already done one offensive tackle, and I'm going to do another one, a guy that I talked about a couple of weeks ago when I did the offensive tackle prospect, but I'm just going to bring him up again just because I like him a ton. And this is on the left side is Isaiah World, who is going to Nevada. I'm sorry, he's going to Oregon. He started at Nevada. You can see his splits the last 2 years, multiple year starter at left tackle. I like him a ton. Long arms, quick feet, 6'8", 310 pounds. So the Browns do go a different direction at left tackle if DeJuan Jones doesn't work out. Isaiah World is a really nice piece on the left side. I think he has strong, violent hands. I mean, he wants to bring the fight to you and take control of the rep. He's got a quick punch, wants to jolt you, knock you off your pass rush plan and take control. He's got an inconsistent pad level, which makes him he loses the leverage battle too often for a guy that is, I think, has good power. And when you're 6'8", you have those issues. DeJuan Jones has had those issues. I think he's really smart. I think he handles stunts and twists and all the other things that defenders throw at him to try to confuse him. I love his lateral agility. I really think he's a really refined pass protector. It's the run game that he needs to make steps in this year. I think he handles both speed and power rushers because of that lateral quickness and that power that I think he has. At 6'8", I'd like him to be a little bit bigger, maybe get closer to 320. I think the length and power, he uses it really well to stonewall guys and kind of hold them up. I'm really happy with his ability as a pass protector more so than I am as a run blocker, because I think there's some technique things and some pad levels and some inconsistency issues that he's got to clean up on that side. But, outside of that, I think Isaiah World, I'm really excited because he goes from Nevada to Oregon. And it's a real big step up in competition. So it's like, okay, well, what's this going to look like now that he's doing that? I've got one more wide receiver. I promise this is the last wide receiver. Sometimes I don't even look at my list. I'm really intrigued by Eric Singleton. You'll see back-to-back 700-yard seasons. He was at Georgia Tech. I think he's going to be in a better offense to showcase his skill set. If you are looking for that field-stretching, vertical, explosive guy, Eric Singleton Jr. can fly. Very intrigued by him in that Auburn offense after 2 years. Productive years with Georgia Tech, but, just 714 yards followed by 754 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. He's small, 5'10", 178 pounds. So you see here, he's in the 99th percentile on PFF's game athleticism score metric. So if you're just looking for like a crazy athlete who can just absolutely fly down the field, it's Eric Singleton Jr. Now at Auburn. So I'm really excited to kind of see where he goes from there. Now in an offense that a different offense. Let's see if he's just this one trick pony, if he's just a speedster, or is he something more, less? I don't know. It's definitely one of those things that you just kind of let play out. Let's see who we got next for you guys. I'm not going to do corners today because we just did corners last week. So I don't want to bog you guys down with that again. I'm like, you just talked about this guy, and I don't want to be that guy. I just talked about the guy. Oh, yes. So the guy, this is one of my favorite guys that I did not talk about in the edge episode, and that's Kendrick Faulk, the edge rusher from Auburn. And I'll wrap the show up on this one. Pull up a first look here. 6'6", 270. This dude is big, very big. You can see plays some over the tackle, outside the tackle. So doesn't really line up inside. Last year, 9 sacks, 31 hurries, 5 hits. He's at his best as a run defender, as you would expect at 270 pounds. But I'm very intrigued by him as a pass rusher because he's got a really nasty bull rush. And I'll even show you here what Trevor Sikkema at PFF wrote. He's one of the starting edge. He had an 83.8 overall PFF grade, was more than 16 points better than he had as a freshman, and it was the 5th best mark of any returning Power 4 edge rusher. The former 4-star recruit is at his best in the run game, tying for 8th with 23 run defense stops. Folk is still developing as a pass rusher, but he did show improvement there with 9 sacks and 45 pressures last year. So you're talking about a guy that had nearly 50 pressures and 9 quarter sacks, and he's still raw and underdeveloped. I think he's got a nice first step off the line of scrimmage, a lot of power. He's got some wiggle, some twitch. He's up there towards the top. Him and Ruben Bain is probably my favorite, is the top edge rusher. I even bring Ruben Bain up here. the Miami pass rusher, who's also a good run defender at 275 pounds. So you've got Faulk and Ruben Bain as these top edge rushers, and they're both in the 270s. So I'm really intrigued by those guys. So there's some of my early draft favorites. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It's a quick episode for you guys this week, but next week's the big one. Next week we talk about the quarterbacks. I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you guys again next week. As always, go Browns.